Hello and a warm welcome to all attendees joining today's webinar, How to Migrate Oracle Forms to ADF, to Apex, or to any other technology. This is the part 2 of the series of webinar talking about migration of Oracle Forms to this kind of technology. It's called the preparation. My name is Sascha Sander, and it's a pleasure for me to moderate and take a tour through today's session. The main part of today's presentation will be performed by my colleague Madi Sharban. She's the development lead at PITSS, so the head of R&D. Madi is joining us from the headquarters in Stuttgart, and I hope that she can hear us well. Madi, are you there?
Hi there, Sascha. Hi, everyone. I'm here. Yes.
That's great that you're with us. Well, we have had the chance to deal with the most migration challenges as company PITSS, and we have learned the core aspects that we should never lose sight of. So that means our migration teams are very glad to share their experience and discuss specific challenges in the series of short webcasts dealing with the major phases of such projects: the plan of a project, the preparation, and finally the migration. Well, the first session earlier in February was focused on the project plan, so how to take all the important aspects into consideration and determine the optimal time frame and milestones. And before writing only one single line of ADF or Apex code, what can we do to ensure that we build our new application on the most solid foundation possible? So preparing for a migration project is the focus of today's webinar, the part 2 of this webinar series. Let's take a quick view on the agenda for today's webinar. First of all, I would like to take the quick chance for a short introduction and update about PITSS and PITSS.CON product and solution stack for those attendees who haven't heard from us yet. But the main part, Madi will share our experience in migration of Oracle Forms to ADF, to the Apex stuff, or to any other technology as mentioned. We will discuss the architectural choices, the prototyping, and all the preparatory steps that can be performed even while we're still using PL/SQL and forms. Well, we all know that typical migration projects often require significant time and costs, and this is why we look for those quick and smart steps that can help us to optimize the process, to minimize the migration time, and ensure a fast, stress-free, and of course successful ADF or Apex redevelopment. So the solutions will be focused on Oracle Forms to ADF and Apex migrations, but the ideas in general apply to any other technology chosen for the future of our applications. So after Madi's session, we will have a quick wrap-up. We will have a summary, and of course we will have the opportunity to discuss all of your questions that may arise during the presentation in a separate Q&A session at the end of Madi's presentation. And therefore, as always, a quick tech information. To minimize sound problems, attendees' mics are set on mute during the presentation. Of course, as mentioned, you will have the possibility to ask your questions. Please use the chat feature and chat question feature, the GoToWebMeeting application. You'll find this at the right bar of this apps. You can log in all your questions during the presentations, and we will discuss and answer them then during the Q&A session. Okay, let's start with a quick update about PITSS. PITSS.CON has been around since '99, so we are in business since 17 years now. PITSS is working globally, directly from our headquarters here in Germany with 2 locations. Madi is located in our development center headquarters in Stuttgart. Speaking that to you, we're targeting the UK market out of Twickenham near London with a daughter company, and for Americas with a PITSS LLC out of Troy, Michigan. Moreover, we collaborate in various regions with dedicated and certified PITSS partners providing our solution and expert service in their countries backed by PITSS directly. We are a team currently of 80 experts. We are a leading provider of tools for Oracle Forms. We work successfully with hundreds of companies internationally performing forms modernization, analysis and ongoing development based on our solution PITSS.CON. We have a huge Oracle know-how. We are a long-standing Oracle partner. We are a preferred migration partner doing even better testing for latest forms versions that enables us to include in PITSS.CON in our product set very fast any functionality required by new forms versions or released provided by Oracle. We are very busy in the community, joining directly or together with partners a lot of events. We run a lot of presentations, so we do now with the web sessions. You find this regularly. Every month you find a couple of presentations available. But of course, whenever you have the chance to join an on-site event, take a look for PITSS. We would be very happy to welcome you at one of our stands. So depending on customer premises, our tool PITSS.CON is not a one-time disposable product. Our product PITSS.CON is a short and long-term and multifunctionality tool to reduce costs and improve development processes and further application maintenance. So therefore, our solution PITSS.CON offers a huge stack of functionality. It's known as a very innovative product for analyzing and maintaining forms and even supporting the evolvement of these applications, whether to latest Oracle technology stack, but also to new infrastructure, to new architecture that we're talking about today, like an ADF or Apex. So the focus of PITSS as company, with our experience, more than 20 years in forms. We're talking SOA since 13 years. We're involved in ADF projects since more than 8 years, doing mobile applications development, involved in this kind of technology. So we are a reliable partner. We have huge expertise in all of these technologies, and all supported by a solution PITSS and the PITSS.CON solution stack to modernize applications and support this in a tool-based approach as well. Well, PITSS is not working on PowerPoint only. We already have many very happy customers around the globe, be it in Europe, in Middle East, in Asia, Pacific, or in the Americas. So if you're particularly interested in the one of the above, for a lot of customers on these slides, we have success stories in place. Check out our website. You find their success stories, or get in touch with us directly. We would be happy to discuss your requirements and even open discussions to one of our customers to share their experience. All of these companies you see here have one thing in common. They're using forms, they modernized forms, or even provide forms-based applications as ISV partners. So you see that you're in very good company using forms, also thinking in re-engineering and modernization. Yes, this is a very good community, and we share the experience. We are very open in this discussion. Would be happy if you go back in touch with us. So now, before I hand over to Marty, I would like to start a very quick poll. Appreciate if you could give us a short impression to whom we are talking, what you're thinking about modernization. So appreciate if you could give us a quick feedback. So what forms version where you're currently going to, or moreover, what is your target platform? So what you're thinking, if you stay in forms, go to Forms 12c, think about Apex, ADF, or any other technology you're interested in. Would be very helpful. So I close this poll in a few seconds. Just let it open 5 more. I appreciate if you tick the box. 3, 2, 1, 0. Thank you very much. And just a quick one to follow up, just to give us a feeling to whom we are talking. If you are thinking about a modernization project, what is the timeline? You schedule one, rough timeline, probably already discussing internally. Probably you already had set up a project plan. Probably already have a dedicated timeline, already taken a discussion or decision about, or you're still in evaluation mode, thinking about the next steps. Appreciate another 5 seconds to give you the chance to give us a quick feedback. Thank you very much. Okay. Fine. Appreciate. Good. Okay, so at this point, thanks for your feedback. And let's move forward now to Marty's session talking about the migration part 2, called the preparation. And I hand over to you, Marty, the moderator rights. And then you can go and move forward. 1 second.
Okay, thank you, Sasha, for the introduction. I'm taking the rights. Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar. We are discussing about migration projects today, specifically about how to prepare this type of projects. As this webinar is part of a series, we will first go quickly through the main ideas we discussed last time. I have here the agenda for today. First, a quick feedback from the polls that Sasha had prepared. I see from the audience that we have 31% selecting Forms 12C, 36 Apex, 4% ADF, and 31% other technologies. So we have a lot of Apex people in the audience, and not much ADF present, and a lot of people choosing other. By other, I can figure .NET or open source Java, or these are the typical choices that people may choose. And regarding the project perspectives, we have a pretty balanced situation, 28% in the next 6 months, 36 next 12, and 36% later. So it's a balanced situation. Now, I start because the time pressure is important. We have the agenda here on this slide. Last webinar was about the reasons we may have to migrate away from forms, what is good and what not so good about forms, the advantages and disadvantages. We have also in other technologies, and also the steps we usually make when planning a migration project. And after this, we'll have a quick review of part 1. But afterwards, we will get to work with the first part of a migration project. If we do our job well from the very beginning, performing the steps that we discussed today, we lay out the foundation for a successful project. The same holds true also for the other situation. If we do not take care of the preparatory steps, these are important, it may be very difficult to recover and finalize in good condition such a migration project. And we will discuss today a few of the most common risk situations, such as how to analyze old and complex software systems, how to deal with designer-generated forms and the unreadable code inside of them, what to do with deprecated functionalities. Of course, we don't want to migrate them, but how to identify them. How to avoid database conflicts. Database is an important part of our application, so this is also important. And finally, how to create a good migration prototype. So let's get to the quick review of the migration planning. Migration planning in 5 minutes. So let's see if I manage to go through this couple of slides in 5 minutes. First important idea. Why do we need to migrate? Why would anyone leave a stable framework such as forms and which are our migration targets? People leave forms usually because of some of its limitations, and these would be getting rid of the Forms Java applet, its security warnings. I have here a couple of screenshots with security warnings. These are annoying, and multiple of them popping up every time we start forms. Issues with the browser, supporting forms on different browsers, Java versions, getting on supported platform. These all are annoying, and people start thinking, well, it may be time to leave. Now, I must say, Forms is still a very powerful framework, and a lot of people are choosing to stay in Forms. And we support them with solutions, basically, with Form solutions. But in case some of our customers really need to migrate, then we have the solutions that we will present today. Some people also need to leave WebLogic. This may be one motivation. People not only leave because they want less problems. Sometimes people want more functionality. The applications we build today, nowadays, address sometimes a new category of customers. We may need to deploy the application on various devices, have modern interface, scalable on all these devices. And apart from this, there might also be a strategic choice towards Java, PL/SQL development. This depends on the talent available in the company. Once we know that we have enough reasons to change the technology, we need to also know from the very beginning that migration projects are very difficult and risky. Not all of them succeed. Our migration projects succeed, but this is because we have developed a methodology of dealing with the typical challenges. And this is important first to acknowledge the typical challenges people have in such projects. The next slide is talking about this. Let's analyze them. The biggest issue migration projects have is the time budget, especially in projects where a full manual rewrite is planned. It is easy to underestimate the amount of work. People may try to estimate the migration time budget per screen. This is an easy way to estimate. However, it's highly inaccurate. For instance, you could say, we may have so many screens, 100, let's say. We may need so much time per screen, so we should be ready in so much time. 2 months, 1 month. However, this per screen estimation is inaccurate. You know, there are easy screens with a couple of text items and buttons, and there are also really complex screens with multiple tab pages, master detail relationships, hundreds of fields, complex logic, and so on. What happens is that after starting such an underestimated project, issues will start popping up, and the migration time will go 2-3 times bigger than the estimated one. And as a consequence, when projects start experiencing time pressure, usually new developers, contractors are hired, the team is doubled or tripled, quality compromises are made. This is far away from the ideal starting point. People will start a manual rewrite because they really want to design a state-of-the-art application with ideal architecture, with consistent code practices, and this quick and dirty scenario is exactly what we don't obtain. From what we have seen, very few projects attempting to do a rewrite or to assess per screen are really successful. Another set of difficulties are related to the learning curve. Migration projects are difficult for both Forms and Java or Apex developer or any other technology developers, because people usually need to have an understanding of both parts, both forms and the new technology. On one hand, forms developers have difficulties understanding the way ADF or Apex or whichever new technology we have work and how to do things in the new world. And they, additionally, they may worry about losing control, have tendency of doing things further on the forms way. And this would lead to a less than optimal ADF architecture. To help forms developers make this transition to the new technology, we implemented for our customers in PITSS.CON partly automated migration routines where the developers need to concentrate first on a few core components. But the principles, even if I will give examples today on and on from PITSS.CON, it's because I can exemplify very easily. The principles that I present today are not exclusive to PITSS.CON. You can apply them also without PITSS.CON with a higher amount of work. Now coming back to the parenthesis, so developers can concentrate in our process on the first few core components, and then in time, after understanding the object's correspondence between forms and the new technology, they gain understanding of the architecture, they learn more complex components, and from the projects I have seen, this process works very well. By the completion of a migration project, forms developers are fully efficient in the new technology, having full ownership and control over the migrated application. Now, coming back to the other side of the story, what about the developers specialized in new technology? They also have their difficulties in these type of projects, and their difficulties are related to understanding forms. They typically have problems in locating hidden forms functionality, may end up overanalyzing, wanting to rewrite everything. This is very typical. They find also difficult to estimate any task just because the forms applications are not well known. And again, there are good news. What we do is use a set of analysis results, helping these developers to find a middle way, a balance between rewrite and reuse, to allow them progress and to allow them to progress without compromising on quality. So the solution we see is a process helping both teams of developers, splitting the work in manageable parts where each of the forms and new technology developers can concentrate on their strengths. On the next slide is a slide about some examples of projects, migration projects at PITSS, demonstrating that it's possible, that migration projects are doable. You can see some company names on this page. There are many more names on the company websites, but now about the examples from bottom to top in the chronological order, you can see listed various projects on the right side. There is the motivation for migration that these companies had. In most cases, we have the need of user interfaces, modern user interfaces, strategy towards Java, mobile deployment. For instance, the oldest one, 6 years ago, migration performed 2010 for a US healthcare provider. They wanted a modern web user interface and they wanted Java. So it was a complex forms application. The difficulty was complex user interface and some challenges such as interacting with Oracle reports, implementing LDAP security, and so on. But it was successful. We managed to finalize in time and budget, and the application works since January 2011. Then you can see some other project. DTE Energy had an integration, for instance, between forms and ADF. We don't always have to migrate. Sometimes we can integrate and use forms for their best. Another example is Volkswagen. And this is a good example for those of you not thinking about ADF or Apex, but thinking of something different. We migrated in this case with the same methodology to ADF and .NET, a mixed architecture, for a mobile scanner application. The challenge was that this mobile scanner application had to be extremely quick so that Volkswagen not to experience logistic problems. And it was also very nice, even if we deployed it on old mobile devices, handheld devices. We managed to create a smartphone similar interface, a feeling of a smartphone, and the end user are very happy. Another example, Oracle Retail, we had the pleasure of working with our colleagues from Oracle on a migration project and are very proud of this. And on the above you can see also projects we are currently working for. All these companies have upgraded, migrated forms together with us and are a living proof that migration projects do succeed. They offered us the chance during the years to perfect this migration roadmap, to upgrade, migrate all types of forms applications, and this way get confronted with almost all possible situations. So this experience that we gathered may also be relevant for you, for your future migration projects. And we've seen some examples of successful projects, the reasons why companies had to migrate. Another important aspect is this migration planning I keep talking about, the process splitting the migration in smaller manageable components. This slide summarizes the migration paths for 3 most used technologies, Forms 12C, ADF, Apex, but it's also applicable to any other technology. So you can read it like this. The first line you see here is about forms upgrade. You have phase 1 followed by phase 2. The second one is for ADF migration. Phase 1 is common to all these approaches, to all these processes. But for the different technologies, the process splits at phase 2 because we have slight differences. So on the second line, we have the ADF migration, the third line Apex, and then any other technologies. But the principles are the same. So in phase 2, 3, 4, we have the same thing, the same principles, just different technologies. We have 2 main components on this plan. The preparatory steps, we call them phases 1 and 2, and then the finding and test steps, phases 3 and 4. The first 2 parts of the process are our topic of discussion today. I must say this plan was designed more than 7 years ago, and it has been applied in countless projects ever since. It's now as actual as it was then, with just minor adjustments, such as we have Forms 12C instead of 11 at this moment. So this webinar is about the preparatory part, what to do before writing the first line of code in the new chosen technology. So about phases 1 and 2, we'll go in detail in these phases next and discuss the challenges and the solutions we have found. So this next slide, we take a look closer to exactly these 2 phases. I call this slide what to do before writing the first line of code, and even if we have a Dilbert image on the slide, we sadly find ourselves too often taking the wrong approach in such projects. And the issues in projects are mostly cascading. So when we take a wrong approach, it will have impact later in the project. These issues, project issues, may start with minor logistic delays and then will propagate to major issues, and all because attempting to do a good job of dealing with time pressure or any other type of constraints. However, the migration projects are difficult enough. So what we tried by establishing some migration preparatory steps was to make sure that we accomplish first the basic steps of a proper project. So we'll discuss this. These first two phases are about simplifying. We are dealing with complex projects, so we need to simplify. The first step is a thorough application analysis, and followed afterwards by steps aimed to reduce the application size, complexity, such as analyzes the application and its complexity, then identifying and cleaning as much as possible of the obsolete functionalities to free the application of unused components. And third step is about migrating the business logic to the database. These steps can be performed with PITSS.CON, can be also performed manually, but they just take much more time manually. What we want is to eliminate the objects that are not used and also duplicates, code duplicates especially. This way the team will not migrate the same routine 20 times, but will identify a duplicated routine correctly as a shared resource and migrate it in a shared library, for instance. So let's start with the first and most important of the preparatory steps, the analysis. Now, what happens is that this word analysis is, people get bored only by hearing it. So if you tell somebody, please analyze this thoroughly, the task is too unspecific. The time spent on a thorough analysis may be anywhere between 1 hour and 2 months. What we did is establishing a few standard analyses that we create for any migration projects that are quick to obtain and that are very meaningful. So this is the first analysis I present here, one that helps us know the application in detail down to each of its components. This is important because understanding in detail a big application can be extremely difficult task. Most forms applications are old, undocumented or not sufficiently documented. A new developer cannot understand the application by simply reading the documentation, and this is valid for the majority, vast majority of forms application. In addition, the young developers these days usually know SQL, Java, C, but very, very few know PL/SQL, and almost none of them forms. This complicates the job even further, because the core of an application may lie in its trigger functionality, for instance. The way the user events happen in forms is something difficult to understand for a Java or a C developer. So this is why we need these types of analysis, make things visual. This analysis here is a navigational flow. You can generate it also manually by searching for calls, open form and so on, calls inside an application, and then drawing these calls. We typically deal in our project with large applications, hundreds of FMBs, thousands of FMBs even. So we use an automated functionality inside PITSS.CON. This type of analysis helps us first understand the structure of a forms application. And when we migrate the application to another technology, the typical workflow does not change much. So we take this flow and then translate it to ADF task flow, Apex page navigation flow, or whatever, you know, its correspondence in your technology of choice. Another useful analysis on the next slide is an insight into one FMB module. You see here blocks, for instance, control block, containing items, and then triggers, firing a chain of common program units, going down to the database object, manipulating their table data. This insight is necessary for each and every module we analyze. It is vital for the developer migrating this specific form module. At the beginning, this analysis was performed manually. You have here the analysis for a small module. But real-life application modules are much bigger than this, and creating the whole flow was taking 1 or 2 days work. So a huge amount of time when we multiply that by hundreds of modules. So what we did, we created a routine performing this task for us. And some of its applications are, first of all, we understand at a glance. We look at this and we understand what happens in a module. Then we can identify pieces of code that are included in forms programs but are never fired. We can see chain of comments that stop somewhere or that start from nowhere, from no trigger. These are obsolete and most applications contain plenty of them. In project.PITSS, we identify such objects automatically with an analysis routine. We eliminate the obsolete component, then we have a clear view, a better understanding of the situations. And these analyses are not only applicable to forms, but they are equally useful in any other technology. So I'll give you on the next slide an example of an Apex similar analysis. So it's also a flow of comments starting from pages, going down to the database table Mitarbeiter, which is employees in German. This was a German application analyzed here. Yes, and I can demo how this process is performed at PITSS just to have a quick understanding. So I have here PITSS.CON with its modules. I need to make an analysis, so I'm clicking the application analysis. On the left side, I'll ignore this, I have the repository. You'll see the modules that I loaded here in the application, and we have forms. We have a couple of Apex applications analyzed. They are split down to all of their components. Or if you see orders, if you see forms modules, you can see it's a similar view. The view is similar to the one you get in Forms Developer. The difference is that you can see more modules at a certain moment, the whole application, thousands of modules if necessary. What we do, let's perform this analysis for a Forms module. So I click Module Summary. Then I'd like to see the program units flow, yes? All the flows inside this module. And I'll call the graph, and the graph is being created. So I see here the program searches through the module metadata in PITSS.CON and find all these calls and rows them for me so I can print it. Just a second to maximize. Okay. I wanted to show the same process also for an Apex application. For instance, if I take sample trees from here, application summary, I have 3 applications. They're pretty big applications, so that we test the system on a real-life application. Let's see the table usage in this application. So, and we can see pages, regions, items, and the tables used here, and so on. So that's the principle. That's all I wanted to show here. Coming back to my slide. So what we see in these types of applications is the stack of calls, and we can create this stack of calls either from top to bottom, so starting from a module or a page, going down to the database, or we call it call stack down, and or from the bottom to top, just seeing a table, and its usage throughout an entire application. I could search for the usage of a specific table. It may be used in Forms and Apex and any other external application, and I can use to see if I have any type of conflicts. So, going further, another particular aspect I would like to discuss is the situation when we are dealing with a designer application, or one that has been generated with designer in the past. You can recognize that the application has been generated with designer after the object names you see in Forms Application Navigator. They sometimes contain these cryptic names and the $character. The code is also full of dynamic constructs, and I have a screenshot here. Instead of writing a direct assignment, designer uses built-ins such as copy and naming to assign values dynamically. Everything is okay, it compiles, but it's difficult to read. And it also may hide errors that do not show up at compilation time. Even forms applications that have been generated with designer in the past still contain these scripty constructs. And the issue is that when we migrate to another technology, the new developers have anyway difficulties understanding what happens. The fact that the application is cryptic written makes the situation even worse. Even Apex developers who know PL/SQL have difficulties here. What we do at PITSS is trying to simplify the code. We can identify patterns, implement them with PITSS.CON. We can print various analyses, this understanding process. We do this before starting the migration work so that when we align all the migration team, we have all the analyses in place. We simplify the application so we avoid losing time with unclear tasks. Going further, one very simple and effective way to simplify, to make sure we focus on the most important part, is to decide what is not important. Old applications contain a lot of functionalities that are no longer in use, and I give a few examples. Number one, we may have created a procedure in the past or package in a forms module and then not use it anymore. So it will just stay there in the forms. It compiles, it doesn't bother us, but it adds bulk and it makes the task of understanding the form more complex. Another example, we have to quickly create a new forms module. So what we do is we copy an old forms module, add some new functionality there. We are ready with the task, deploy it quickly because we were in a hurry and do not have time to delete the old obsolete constructs. Afterwards, so we just disable them. So afterwards, the forms module runs and you don't want to touch a running system, yes? So these obsolete constructs will stay there forever. For next generations of developers to always wonder, what is that code doing there? Another example is when we, for some reason, lose the references. Very typical. We end up having and maintaining hundreds of versions of the same package, the same functionality. I could go on and on with examples. In average, we find 30% of the lines of code inside the forms application not to be used. I have here an example, a graphical example of an application cleaned with PITSS.CON. We had at the beginning 1,200,000 lines of code. We deleted afterwards the unused objects, for instance, functions that were never called, and ended up with 900,000 lines of code. Then we grouped similar objects in libraries, moved logic to database. In the end, we had something like 600,000, 45% less than when we started. We did this in 2 months with a couple of developers. At the end, in this 2 months, we also compiled, tested, deployed on the newest forms version. It was 11G at that time. No problems at compilation, at test time. It works. It's worth doing this type of work, even if not migrating now. For those of you who don't want to migrate, it's also worth to clean the application. In the moment when you want to migrate, it will be easier for you to analyze and migrate. And at this moment, you'll have a easier maintenance. Now, a bit of explanation how is PITSS.CON doing this type, how is PITSS.CON identify the unused objects. If you visualize the repository of PITSS.CON as a series of tables in the database holding forms and reports objects and their properties. What we do in PITSS.CON, we parse these objects and then find the interdependencies among them. For instance, we have a property, a where clause, saying that the block is based on a table. So we have a dependency between that block and that module and the table, and so on. As a first result, after we establish all the dependencies, we can spot things that are not needed, and they are unused. I can show also this demo, also this process very quickly. Okay. How an unused objects analysis is performed is application engineering, because at this moment I try to re-engineer the application. I'll choose a real-life module, one that has unused objects inside. And it's an automated routine, and it's highly accurate. So what I do, I don't care about all the objects. Mostly I care about program units. You see, there is a long list of program units that are obsolete, are there, created by designer automatically for but never used. So if I just delete these program units that you see here, I save a few thousand lines of code are going away from my application. I don't have to maintain them or care about them anymore. Okay, just an idea I wanted to say on this slide. It's about redundancy analysis, something that we are also doing. We also identify similar code and centralize it, so relink the references to improve the overall code reuse ratio. Now, all these preparatory steps we are discussing now are not mandatory, so you may start redeveloping the application also without them. However, they will save a lot of migration efforts and help you obtain a clear new application in the new technology that will be easy to maintain and further develop. And there is another type of unused functionalities that I didn't include on this slide. It's the one type of functionality that users don't use anymore. So how do we spot and clean this type of functionality? We have a solution called user stories, started as an agile tool of recording user stories and highly used in a lot of purposes. Just to explain what are these functionalities that are no longer in use. In almost all applications, we have old pages. They were at some moment useful, but are not used now. To spot them, it's difficult. What we do is we deploy in the production system a copy of the application where each application event is logged in a table. We implement this logging mechanism with PITSS.CON, so it's quick. It can be done manually, but you'll have to open the forms module and implement a logging mechanism in almost all of its objects. And we also, okay. And after letting this application run in the production for a while, we analyze the log tables. It's a huge amount of data there, but we can see that the application modules that were never started, never used, pages that were never opened. What we do afterwards, we discuss with the client, because there might be the situation in some cases, some few cases, there are functionalities that may be used very rarely, for instance once a year for some yearly reporting. And after eliminating this situation, we have a very clear view of A, what is used very frequently, and we can decide to focus our attention there. B, what is not used at all, we can delete those functionalities. And C, what we also do, we spot eventual performance issues with the help of this process, and it helps us fix them, identify and fix them. This is a very valuable information that is otherwise very difficult to get. Okay. After identifying, deleting every type of obsolete functionality that you may think of, there is one more step that we can do before starting to write, and that is consolidating the business logic in the database. And this step is the best practice when migrating to Apex. It's optional when migrating to Java, but from our experience, almost all the customers in migration projects so far chose to move the logic to database. The reason why this step is difficult is that the amount of program units in a forms application can be huge, and it's the most challenging task when moving from forms to another technology is not user interface redesign, but is taking care of this huge amount of business logic. And this business logic has been written in forms program units like functions, procedures, packages, triggers, as a mix of database SQL sentences, PL/SQL code, user interface forms built-in, and it's at the end a tightly coupled puzzle of user interface and business logic. It's difficult to migrate. But we are talking about Oracle databases here. We plan to use Oracle database also in the future. Then the database would be made the best place to migrate the business logic. By moving this business logic from the forms application to the database, we are sure that this code will be accessible not only to the forms application like it does now, but also to ADF, Apex, any other environment that can communicate with our Oracle database. And generally, we need to care of this data-intensive business logic before generating the new application, before migrating. Ideally, the application should be freed of as much business logic as possible. This is not a simple task, and we perform it with the help of business logic assistant in PITSS.CON. It's a fully flexible process where the database developer decides names of the packages to migrate and also the amount and the parameters. There are a few more database checks that are included on this slide here, what to further check and fix in the database. And these are important to be discussed. First, checking that the database tables have primary keys. I don't know of your target technology, but for both ADF and Apex, this is an important topic. They are necessary. The second issue is about global variables. These are an issue in case we use connection pooling in Java, because the value of global package variables may be shared across shared connections. And in Apex, there might be no issue, because Apex commits at every page and click and eliminates this way these kind of issues. So we discussed so far about all kinds of analysis, application cleaning methods, and one more major things to do, prototyping. I have one slide for this task. It's life-saving. Without a prototype, it's difficult. The purpose of a prototype project is to make sure we are on the right path, that we have chosen the right technology, that we can do the job in time. We generate very accurate time estimations with PITSS.CON, but even then, the prototype tells us each and every time if the estimations are really valid for the specific situation of our project. If in our situation we would need to allocate more resources. And the issues that pop up in projects pop up also because we did not think of every possible thing that can surprises that people have during the project. For instance, people may discover that the end users want a different type of navigation that is not recommended for the chosen architecture. Nothing is impossible. We'll try to tweak the system, but tweaking the system, misusing the new technology would lead to huge amounts of time spent. Another example, architectural concepts may prove themselves inadequate later in the project, and changing the architecture later in the project has also major consequences. What we need to do is, when we prototype, is to test on all supported browsers, devices, deployed on the exact server, exact authentication model that is desired for the future. Not to forget to call reports, Java beans, C programs, host commands, anything that is called from the application, just to see that the new technology can do that clearly within the security parameters. Another target for the prototype is writing the best practices. We are writing the books on how to migrate for the next team of developers. The next team of developers, when the project starts, is composed of juniors and seniors and people learning and people experienced, but all will have to be on the same page and implement the same best practices. So we reach the moment when it's not the final, I have one more slide. The moment where we performed all the preparatory steps, we know we are on the right path, would like to start migrating, so what we do is we used at PITSS for the migration process a partly automated process. I'll demo this one. Okay, I'll exit from not this page. Okay. Okay, this is the page that I was searching. I'm just opening a previewer. This is not a full migration. It's just a previewer, sort of a mock-up prototyping tool that I'm using. I'm just selecting one FMB and migrating it to ADF. What we do is we load it into PITSS.CON repository. So this prototyping tool, this pilot previewer tool sits on a PITSS.CON installation, having the full power of PITSS.CON. It loaded in the repository of the forms module. So I see here the summary of everything that's inside, 10 blocks and canvases and everything. It creates a database for me just because I want to do a quick and dirty migration. Now, in real life projects, we don't do that. We load the real life objects, the real database. But just now, to make a quick demo, I reverse engineered the database for this module. I have these tables created. Next, migrate to ADF. And what it happens, the program loops through all the objects and creates a new ADF application that has as much as possible from the old one. Now, when this project runs, I can explain why we have a partly automated process, why we don't strive to have 100% migration. What we want to do is to create an application that looks as handmade. We have this bad experience of dealing with designer-generated code. We want to avoid that. We don't want scripted code. We want, when you open the generated application, to think that a senior developer has created it handmade, fully handmade. And this is why PITSS.CON migrates only the components that have a 100% accuracy, accurate correspondence in the target architecture, and leaves the rest of the components for being manually migrated or fine-tuned. We also generate a detailed to-do list with the tasks that need to be performed in order to fully migrate the forms module. Why I chose to demo the forms to ADF is because in the first part of the webinar, I think I demoed a forms to Apex migration, and people asked, oh, what about ADF? Can you do that? So this time we have the forms to ADF demo. Quick and dirty, this is the migrated module. It may not always look nice from the very beginning. We may need to drag and drop some things from the user interface, but typically this is how things are done. But now, just don't understand that migration is quick. It's not quick. The automated migration part is quick. The fine-tuning comes afterward. And this automated migration, even if it's done here with a few clicks, is fully customizable. For instance, customizable. So I can define in PITSS.CON a full ADF target architecture with multiple forms grouped into a cylinder architecture and all kinds of concepts. But we don't have time for them at this moment. So I'm coming back to the presentation slide. We reached the final slide. Taking a look again at the project plan, we performed phases 1 and 2 of the project. Need to start phase 3. This phase means perfecting, enhancing this migrated application. Contains similar processes for the technologies, different technologies, and what we take care in this phase is not just to migrate, but also to enhance. We want to enhance, to add modern components. We want to take advantage of all the possibilities of the new technologies to bring new features to our end users. After this phase, we have the test phase, and if we did our job well during the first phases, the final test phase should be easy. End user should be happy, development team should have full control over the new application, and an easy maintenance ahead. About these third and fourth phases we'll discuss in the next webinar series, somewhere in September. I will give now my colleague Sasha the time to say some words too, and then we'll have the Q&A session, so please start asking questions using the chat if we did not start yet. Sasha, are you there?
Yes, yeah, of course I'm here. Thank you very much, Madi. Perfect. So, well, at this point, I thank you very much. I think I'm pretty confident that our attendees realized the potential benefits for the potential project requirements as well. Well, at this point, I would like to encourage you, ladies and gentlemen, to place your questions in the question and answer chat. We would like to discuss any questions. I think that as a quick summary of our proven approach, that what we can offer to you is a first successful step to realize based on an analysis, think about and discuss your requirements. For sure you're aware that a migration process is not a push on the button, but moreover requires a proper analysis and application preparation as demonstrated by Madi. Of course, depending on your individual requirements. So we can analyze, we can perform the migration, we can do a pilot project, we can check if there are any efforts expert services with our consulting team. This is our daily business and we'd like to share our expertise with your team. So finally, it's about shortened projects, about safe migration, it's about cost and time effective migration so that you can move forward with your core business successfully. Okay, so far from my side. If there are any questions from your side, please place it. We would be happy to discuss. Madi, do you see anything coming up here?
I have one question about what about Oracle reports,
Okay.
where to migrate them. And this is a common concern. People don't think only about forms, they think of reports, especially when they leave forms when they want to leave WebLogic too. They have an issue with reports at that moment. Most used choices to replace reports are BI Publisher, Jasper reports. This is what we've seen. Excel, most components in the new technologies, for instance in ADF, have Excel export functionalities. But you don't always have to migrate reports. So if you stay with WebLogic, you can deploy reports on the same WebLogic server and can call them from anywhere. It's just an URL call. We just need to take care of passing the connection on having a database connection where the reports to run and taking care of the security, but this is doable. So reports don't have to be migrated.
Okay. Anything else at the moment?
No, I don't see any other question.
Okay.
From my side. Maybe you received another one.
No. So I think probably already answered a lot of questions that attendees had in mind during your presentations. Anyway, if there is any question that might come up after the presentation, after you have probably thinking about what you have seen here, please don't hesitate to come back at any time to us. We are there for you. We'll be happy to receive and answer your questions. Just want to point out one of our next webinars talking about Forms 12c. Latest Forms version, not upgraded to Forms 12c yet. There is a webinar scheduled for June 29th, same time, same place. Well, PITSS will get you there as well to Forms 12C in time and budget, so would be happy if you register. Register right now. Registration is open already, and would be happy to meet you there again. Just have a look here. Okay, Madi, I have a couple of other questions arise here.
Okay.
Do you see them?
Yes, I. Two of them ask to have a copy of the presentation. Yes.
Yes.
We'll send the slides. Yes, Sasha.
Yes, definitely. This webinar, like all of our webinars, are recorded. So check out the YouTube channel and our website. You will find the recorded version of this webinar in short term. You will find the webinar recorded in February, so they have all parts available. Part 1, Part 2. Next webinar of the series, I think you already mentioned, Marty, will be scheduled or is scheduled for September, so after summer holidays. So you can register already now. It's available. And of course, you will find all the recorded webinars on the PITSS YouTube channel. You will find the link and at our website. Okay. Good. One question regarding the number or minimum number of forms that we have to use a solution like PITSS. Well, there is no minimum number. It's depending on the complexity. So there is no number that we would start or we would recommend to start with. It's really talking about the complexity of your application, of an existing application, and this is, let's say, it is based on the analysis that Marty showed today or earlier in her presentation. So we would recommend to do this based on an analysis in the first step, and then see what is the complexity, what is the savings in time and efforts, taking a tool, or doing the cleaning, the preparation, and finally the migration based on a tool like PITSS. Okay. So there are a couple of questions coming in. Very happy about that. Madi, do you see them?
Okay. One of them is about primary key. So it's,
yes.
I heard that primary keys are mandatory for migration. Is my understanding right? They're not mandatory. So you could have a whole database schema with tables, and you don't need primary keys everywhere. It's just for the objects you use in ADF or Apex or another technology. You would need to specify a primary key, even if there is no physical primary key in the table. You would need to specify a column that acts as a primary key. But there are also solutions. However, it's better to normalize, to take care that tables have primary keys when migrating, at least the tables that are used in the new technology. And another question, in certain forms we have used just jar files. What will be the approach while conversion? Some jar files are not necessary anymore just because they are replaced by default functionality. And for the rest of jar files, there is a decision on a case-by-case basis. You need to see if these jar files are compatible with the chosen target architecture, if you can call them, if you can reuse them, or there may be also be the situation that you have to re-implement them. But in most cases, there is, I'm talking about ADF, for instance, it comes out of the box, a lot of the jar functionality. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, good. Taking in account the time, well, if any questions will arise now after our session, again, please come back to us. So for PITSS Americas, you can get in touch directly with my colleague there, Jason Morrow at jmorrow@pitsamerica.com. For PITSS UK and other global, whether directly to me or my colleague David Brown at dbrown@pitss.com. check out our website regularly. We would be happy to welcome you to the one or other webinar or to meet you in person at the one or the other event. We'll join again, point out the YouTube channel at PITSS. You can find all presentations, a lot of interesting stuff about modernization, about PITSS.CON, about our recommendation, webinar series, etc. I would be happy if you check out the site. And well, at this point, let me thank you for your time. We're looking forward to meeting you. Thank you very much, Madi, again, for joining us.
Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.